I've looked at thousands of professional thumbnails through my YouTube journey, and in this video I'll expose the most valuable psychological tricks that they use to make you click. This video will gradually get more advanced, so I'm pretty confident that by the end of this video you'll have learned something new. Starting with the first thing I discovered, it's visual hierarchy. I'm guessing this is the first time you've ever heard that term, so let me explain it easier by dividing it into 3 different parts. The first one is contrast, which is probably more familiar. Contrast is one of the easiest tricks to use, but also very powerful, and the reason for this is because our brains tend to compare things. And when we look at stuff, we usually try to find the differences rather than the similarities, so by using contrast in a thumbnail, you're basically feeding your brain what it wants. The most used contrast I found were color contrasts, where 2 different colors were used next to each other. Also, image contrast, where the photos were used next to each other, creating a contrast that way. I saw this being used quite prominently for transformation videos like losing weight or cooking type of videos showing the before and after of a dish. Lastly, it was a contrast between objects like a person and a phone or a dog and a house. Obviously, I'm not calling people objects, but that's the only word I could think of there. This was only 1/3 of visual hierarchy. The second part of visual hierarchy is scale. I don't see a lot of people talk about this, but it's still powerful. If you were to make a video about the smallest insect and you couldn't implement scale in it, let's say it would be a zoomed in photo of the insect, do you think it would convey the message of the video clearly? Well, no. Scale is super important, and I don't think you know how much scale is used in photos. It's not only used for videos that have the word smallest or largest in the title, pause obviously. Look at this thumbnail for instance. The title is Truth or Dare IRL, which has nothing to do with size, right? But the thumbnail has made it so Eric, the creator, is way larger than anything behind him to make it look like he's super high up. Think about it. If the people on the beach were almost the same size as him, do you really think this video would get the same amount of views and click-through rate? The same here. The trees in the back are there to showcase how big this graveyard really is. Moving on to the last part of visual hierarchy, I won't go too deep into this because you won't really need it if you're still quite a low-key channel, but it's proximity. Like I mentioned earlier, our brains constantly tries to compare things. It also likes to group things. Looking at this thumbnail in particular, you can see how those people on the left are one group and the person on the right is another group, showcasing yet again visual hierarchy. This is used usually in improvement videos where the creators talk about why we is better than them. The second thing I discovered while researching for this video does have some similarities to the previous one. It's pattern and repetition. Take a look at these 4 thumbnails. All of them use what's called pattern and repetition. I used to play a game called Tetris many years ago. You've probably played it too, I would guess. But I remember tryharding it in school. It was incredibly addictive because of the simplicity and also the satisfaction I got out of it. The reason I'm telling you this story about me playing Tetris is to show a perfect example of a game made out of solely patterns and repetition. The reason why patterns and repetitions work so well is because our brain literally works on patterns and repetition. So going back to those 4 thumbnails, what are all the patterns you can find? Pause the video and try finding all of them. Okay, you're back? If so, here are all the patterns I could find. So you can see clearly that thumbnails do revolve a lot on psychology, which is exactly what this channel is about. I don't usually do this, but if you've actually found real value in this video and think that you'd want to see more videos like this, subscribing and commenting would actually help spread the video to other like-minded creators just like you. Also join the Discord down below. We talked about visual hierarchy and now patterns and repetition, but both of these psychological tricks are used to enhance the third thing I discovered, which is focal points. Literally, all of the thumbnails from the biggest creators have a clear and sharp focal point. And I really think this is one of the biggest things that's holding you back from reaching that next milestone. I can't tell you how many times I talk to creators that don't have a clear focal point in their thumbnails. To those that don't have a clue what I mean when I talk about focal points, it's almost like that one corn kernel that didn't turn into popcorn. It's what catches the eye of the person and gets the person's attention. So when this is used in thumbnails, it's basically what's gonna make someone click. A focal point is then the most important part of the thumbnail. So what I see most people doing is making the background of the photo too much of a focal point. This is not what you want to do in the thumbnail for obvious reasons. So how you can prevent this is by maybe making the background darker or blurring it a little bit. Anything to take the focus off and away from the background and on what you want to get the attention on. In this thumbnail, Arak is the focal point in the middle, everyone else is sort of blurred out. And with this thumbnail, the focal point is the toy Ryan's holding up, which he does by darkening out the background and putting a slight blur on it as well. And talking about focal points, it leads me to probably the most powerful psychological trick you can implement to your thumbnails, and it's this. Can you see it? Alright, let me show you another example. Can you see it now? It's the leading lines. We just talked about focal points and hopefully you have a better understanding of it now, but a good way to draw the viewer to the focal point is by using leading lines. Essentially, leading lines are used to lead someone's eyes to a specific point in the photo, and that point is the focal point. It's easier for me to show this than to talk about it, so here's how the biggest creators have done it. Mr. Beast did it with, for example, this thumbnail where the lasers are the leading lines. You can see that the laser is perfectly shaped and oriented to lead the eyes to Jimmy. But if you're not convinced yet, this thumbnail is even a better example of this being implemented. Tyler Oliveira's video on plane crashes has him on the left and the plane, which is perfectly shaped and oriented yet again to lead the viewer to the focal point of the thumbnail. This thumbnail again, the same thing. Or even this one. All of the biggest creators are doing this, yet I don't see anybody first of all talk about it, secondly implement it as a small creator. Value over entertainment. Remember that. Thank you for watching and bye.